All right, folks. All right, here we go to Chapter 2 of today's Sunday session. Now, most of you are well aware the whole thrust of the efforts here at the Freedom Law School are to educate people about your rights and about how they've been taken away from you. And if they say, you know, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Well, truer words could not possibly be spoken. If you don't know your rights, how can you exercise your rights? How do you know if your rights are being trampled on? Well, our next speaker here has made it his goal, his personal mission, if you will, to educate people, and he does so in such a way. I really admire the way Steve does this, because he does so in a way that, you know, that information like this, I mean, I'm a left brain individual. You know, right brains are like real analytical, the left brains are like real creative, or, you know, and when it comes to forms and reading, you know, tax codes, I mean, this thing here, you know, I mean, I've gone through it and read it, but I'll tell you, it's going through a thing like this is like really hard for me. But digging up the documents and helping to understand what they mean and how they apply to you is like an art. And this man is a master at making the IRS code, making the Constitution, making UCC, all of it understandable and fun to learn. And so you're going to really enjoy this next presentation from the Freedom Society. Sorry, the Freedom Society. I mean the what? Free Enterprise. I know, I got my Merdswicks there. The Free Enterprise Society, ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen that you're going to really get a kick out of, Mr. Steve Hempfling. Couldn't find that middle word.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, thank you.
Well, it's good to be here. How many IRS agents are in the crowd today? Just one? All right. Ted said there were some informants here. Which ones are you? Informants? Justice Department. Only one? All right. Things to remember today. I'm only giving you my opinions. A lot of people say that, but that's really all I can do. And we're going to talk a little bit about the income tax. Anyone heard of that? Anybody heard of the Franchise Tax Board? That's a local organization here in California. If you're not, how many are not from California? Wow, you guys are brave. Come to California. We have a governor here named Arnold Schwarzenegger. They call him the Governator. That's enough said. John Adams, you may remember, he was on, his name was on the Declaration of Independence and some other documents. He once said, "Dare to read, think, speak, and write." He said that in 1765. Can we do that in America today? Somewhat. There are interesting times going on with the government, and I guess Bush has something to do with it, with his "you're against us, you're with us or against us" attitude. And most of what we talk about is, as far as I'm concerned, the foundation is the Constitution of the United States. We have a little book here, there on the table over there. Payman has some. I think most of you probably have one. But this is the formula, if you will, that made America the greatest country the world has ever seen. When we followed this formula, financially, economically, we were the most powerful nation on the earth. Everyone wanted to come here. Now, what happens today? Are we the most powerful nation? In some respects. How about financially? We're in debt so deep, we might as well be a third world country as far as debt goes. And of course, people are worried about a collapse. I don't know about you, but I think that's something worth worrying about. But the Constitution is the foundation. It's the law. It's the basic law in our country. We'll talk about that a little bit. Now, there's a sound effect that isn't working right, they said, but this motorcycle represents a story that I'm going to tell you real quick because the story has an important moral to it. You may wonder why I'm talking about it. But when I lived in Dallas, Texas for a while, there was an article in the paper. And there was this person there, and it wasn't me, but there was this person there that never owned a motorcycle before and decided to buy one. So he went out and bought the biggest motorcycle money could buy and did not know how to ride it. So he decided, well, I want to ride it in my backyard. I want to learn how to ride in my backyard. He was riding around in the backyard. And he was getting pretty good there, he thought. And so he was headed for the back door and sped up to the back door and tried to brake. And instead of braking, the front wheel came off the ground. He did a wheelie right through the glass patio door into the living room and fell over. And his wife, oh my God, so she got all caught by the glass, so his wife had to call the ambulance. You know, the ambulance came out and took him off. And then the Harley's laying there on his side in the living room. What does Harley do when they lay on their side? Well, they leak. They leak gasoline, different things. So the wife sopped up the gasoline with towels and wrung it out in the toilet there, and then off she rushed to the hospital. Well, her husband came home that afternoon. He's all bandaged up. He's checking himself out, all the bandages in the mirror there, and then he went to the toilet there to do some business. And he lit a cigarette. You guys are pretty smart on this side of the room, I know. Yes, well, his wife in her haste to get to the hospital did not flush the toilet, so it was still full of gasoline. And the toilet exploded in flames and burned this man on many parts of his body, which I won't go into any more detail. So, oh my God, his wife says, she called the ambulance again. And Dallas is not a small town, but by chance the same ambulance came out. Same two drivers, same two paramedics. So they bandaged him up, came in the house that same day, that afternoon, carried him out on the stretcher, and they couldn't help but ask. The paramedic had to ask. He said, what happened? We were just here this morning. His wife explained the situation, and the paramedic carrying the head of the stretcher laughed so hard he dropped the stretcher. And when he did that, the guy broke his collarbone in the fall. Now, is that a definition of a bad day? If you look up bad day in Webster's, it'll be that guy in Dallas right there. I bring that to your attention because it's got an important moral to this story that I'm going to tell you later, later on today. Any problems with the income tax? You may have heard that. People talk about the income tax. Most people like paying the income tax, don't they? I mean, obviously 90 million people volunteer it every year. Have you ever heard that? Justice Hugo Black said, loyalty comes from the love of a good government, not fear of a bad one. Is that a true statement? Do Americans fear our government today? Some do, yes. And that's why these crowds aren't bigger. Have you tried to bring somebody to these meetings? What do they say? Oh, they'll take my license number down. They're scared of government. We had people come to these meetings that park 2 miles away and walk in. And I've done this for 25 years, and I've never seen them take down their license numbers, and number one. And number two, they gave the license number to you, the government, so I wouldn't worry about it. Thomas Jefferson said, if a nation expects to be free and ignorant, it expects something that cannot be. Is that a true statement? So I think people are ignorant. I think the Constitution and our basic laws are not taught in the schools anymore. President Clinton, when he was president, claimed to have taught constitutional law in a university in this country. And to prove how much he knew about it, he quoted from the Gettysburg Address. And I know that, in fact, in high school, you don't get to read the Constitution unless they have a really knowledgeable history teacher. They talk about the Constitution, some of the things, but they actually do not read it, which seems kind of strange to me. Now, this person here is a fun guy. Alberto Gonzales was the former Attorney General. I like that he's former, and that's why I put his picture up here. I think he was a very dangerous man, one of the most dangerous people we had in the government, because he really thought the law was a weapon. And law is not a weapon in a free country. Law is a protection to the people. In a communist country, it's a weapon. To me, he's a communist. Now, the Department of Justice. Let's talk about them a little bit. You know, it sounds real good, Department of Justice, doesn't it? United States Department of Justice. Does anybody get justice at the Department of Justice, do you think? Maybe some people do, but I'll tell you what, the Department of Justice, under Alberto Gonzales and others, the Justice Department has been used as a political weapon. Do you believe that? Clinton did it. I mean, that was pretty obvious under him. He sent the IRS and other agencies after people he didn't like and after his enemies. just to cause them problems. Now they have it has a Latin saying there, which I don't know exactly how to say, but basically what that means is that justice would be given to the poor and the rich alike. Is that true? Is that, if you're poor, do you get equal justice in America? Well, the Justice Department has noticed Free Enterprise Society. And we're trying to expose fraud on the Internal Revenue Service's part. And I thought, well, the Justice Department ought to come around. They ought to come around and say, Steve, you know, we're going to help you. You think they did that? Jeff Dickstein was talking yesterday about an injunction against Bill Benson. They're attempting these injunctions all across the country. And they did file one against Free Enterprise Society. Now, Evan Davis was the U.S. attorney who called me up one day. He said, talk to me. This was over 3 years ago now. He talked to me because the IRS they sent up a file on me, but they didn't have anything in it. The IRS didn't really collect any records. So he called me up and said, it doesn't look like you're an abusive tax shelter. And I had to agree with that. That was how the conversation ended. But a year later, he did file a civil complaint, just civil, not criminal, saying, well, I'm an abusive tax shelter. Well, I don't understand that, because to be a tax shelter, you have to have, you know, get credits and deductions on someone's tax return. You know, sell them a gold mine or something, would seem to me. The word tax shelter has never been on our website. And if you were looking for a tax shelter, Free Enterprise Society would be the last place you would look, in my opinion. But the interesting thing is they're alleging false statements about the IRS. For example, I'm going to talk about this too a little bit. Income tax is voluntary. They're saying that's a false statement given by me, but I'm going to show you that I get that from the IRS's website and from court cases and from the statutes themselves. A friend of mine did work for the Justice Department up in Washington, and he had the bravery or courage to even ask his supervisor, because he was concerned about the Constitution. He asked his supervisor about the Constitution and its importance, and the supervisor of the Justice Department told this person, well, we follow the Constitution about 80% of the time, and that's good enough. And this person asking these questions eventually lost his position there, because he wanted to follow the Constitution 100% of the time. Now, if you, in here, follow the law only 80% of the time, where would you be? You'd be in jail for many lifetimes. But the government does it routinely because they think they are the law. Is that true? Well, you're both right. You said yes and no. In practice, they are, but under law, they're not. I mean, the Constitution is the supreme law. We'll get into that. They have many rationalizations. The attorney coming against me is a smart guy. He's reasonable. I might even go fishing with him. I've met him under different circumstances. You know, him kind of suing me kind of throws cold water on that full fishing thing, but still, I wonder why he can do it. But I think it's just because the human nature has such a marvelous way of rationalizing things. Because if you're doing a job and you're doing it dishonestly, how can you even look yourself in the mirror, I wonder? So they must have to rationalize something. Well, Steve Hempfling may not be a tax shelter, but he's doing something we don't like, surely. Or another thing the government likes to say is truth is relative. You ever heard that? Is truth relative? No, it's not. A lie is a lie. I mean, everybody here knows that. The average person knows what it is. Another thing that I've heard from government officials, well, the truth is not black and white, it's shades of gray. From their point of view, I guess it is, because they can't seem to tell the truth very often, do they? Bill Benson case that Jeff Dickstein's talked about is related to ours, and some of the information that we have that is under attack was also under attack in Bill's case. And by the way, Jeff Dickstein didn't have a table here, so some of you were looking for him yesterday. He's going to be hanging out at the Free Enterprise Society table for those still looking to talk to him or give him any donations for that case. But the Bill Benson case is very important, but they're attacking not just them and Free Enterprise Society, they've actually attacked hundreds of organizations around the country that are trying to educate people on the Constitution. And they've done this through the abusive tax shelter issue. But let's get into something a little bit different here for a little while. Let's talk about the Declaration of Independence. July 4th, 1776. You may remember that date. We celebrate it every year. July 4th was when the Declaration of Independence was signed. And here's what it says on the first part of it. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, driving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Who's the governed? Is it we, the people in this room? Are you the governed? Or is those? I would think so. Article 6 of the United States Constitution says, this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. What does that mean, supreme law? Top or bottom? It's supposed to be the top. Now, the founders had a higher law than that, if you read about any of the history of the founders, and that was their religious beliefs, whatever they may be. But in our civil law, in our country, this was meant to be the highest law, supreme law. So what does that mean? It continues on. The judges in every state shall be bound thereby, and anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So the judges take an oath to defend this Constitution. Is it fair to say they took an oath to defend the United States Constitution, not the Constitution of Cuba? Does Cuba have a constitution? I don't know. Beats me. Do we want it if they have one? And it says the laws of contrary to any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So if California would do this, and of course they would never do this, but if California were to pass a law contrary to this, what would happen to it? Would it stand or fail? It says notwithstanding, which means it would not stand. Every law that is passed should be compared to the Constitution. And if it doesn't stand up to the Constitution, it should fail. That's what it's saying. This is the supreme law. Does that happen today? Well, first of all, does California ever pass anything contrary to the Constitution? Of course they do. They do it every day because they haven't read the Constitution. We had one senator, a friend of mine here in California, Senator Don Rogers. He said out of 120 elected officials in California, there's 80 assembly and 40 senators here. He said that when he was in office for quite a while, he said at the best during those years, 6 people have ever read the Constitution. That is pretty sad. So what are they making laws based on? Whatever they want to do, because they think they can do it. The senators and representatives before mentioned, the members of the several state legislature, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. We can agree that's what should have been the United States Constitution. Now, when they're taking that oath, they're taking an oath to defend with their life this Constitution. Why don't they read it? Don't you think that'd be kind of important? I think it would be. Of course, we have the same problem in the military and police departments and everything else who take an oath. Most of them do not read it. How can you defend people's rights if you don't know what they are, I ask. I'll tell you how important the Constitution is. We have a case here, Norton versus Shelby County. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties, affords no protections. In legal contemplation, it is as inoperative as though it had never been passed. That's pretty strong. Does that work that way today? Sure doesn't. The Constitution is just not talked about very much, and when you try to bring it up, what happens? Well, is everyone required to file a return? I don't know. Let's just say that I'm just going to tell you a story, kind of my research, not research exactly, but what happened to me. I went to a meeting, probably around 1979, talking about these things, and then from there I started looking at some things, which I encourage you to do. Again, as these are my opinions, and I don't want you to take my word for these things. But in the 1040 instruction booklet, you will find a section here that says, do you have to file? If everyone's automatically required to file, from my point of view, why would they have this section in there? They wouldn't need it. They would just say everyone's required, right? In fact, most people in America think they are required. From the time you can walk, you know this. Your family tells you this, your teachers tell you this, your coworkers tell you this, but no one's ever really seen a law, in my opinion, that requires them. So what does it say on this? Do you have to file? Use chart A, B, and C to see if you must file a return. And then it has a tip. Even if you do not otherwise have to file a return, you should file one to get a refund. That's a good tip. But does that mean everyone's required to file? Does that leave it open that maybe someone's not required? Sure it does. Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. By the way, the first 10 amendments are also known as the Bill of Rights, for those that don't know. And they were so important that the Constitution didn't get fully ratified until those first 10 amendments were in place. So, Fifth Amendment. Is the Fifth Amendment involved with filing of income tax returns? Well, we have a case here, or we have the Fifth Amendment. It says, no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. And we have a case here, Sullivan versus United States. It's talking about income tax returns in the Fifth Amendment. It says, there can be no question that one who files a return under oath is a witness within the meaning of the amendment. So do you waive your Fifth Amendment right? According to this case, you do. Well, what does that mean? That means anything you put on a tax return can be used against you. You no longer have a Fifth Amendment claim. You've waived that when you signed the form under penalties of perjury. In fact, any form that has penalties of perjury on it, you're doing the same thing. How about the Fourth Amendment? Let's see what that says. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. The founders thought enough of the word papers to put it in the Constitution. What do you think they're talking about? Newspapers? Toilet paper? Of course not. It had to be your family records, your business records, photos, whatever they were. You had a right to privacy in those. Does the IRS think you have privacy in those records? But do you violate the Fourth Amendment when you file an income tax return then? Not violate, but are you waiving the Fourth Amendment right when you file an income tax return? I think you would be, at least to the extent of anything you make reference to. If you make reference to some bank statement on the return, you waived your Fourth Amendment in regards to that document because you had privacy under the Constitution. Can you be required to waive a constitutional birthright? Let's see. If you waive something, and we took this from a law dictionary can be different from a Webster's or other common dictionary in the fact that these are used by the courts and every term is defined and even had court cases behind it that used it as a definition. So let's look at the legal definition of waive. If you're waiving a right, you abandon, throw away, renounce, repudiate, surrender a claim, privilege, or right. To give up a right or claim voluntarily. In order for one to waive a right, he must do it knowingly and be possessed of the facts. Did the IRS tell you you're waiving these rights? They don't do it very directly. It's kind of in the 1040 instruction booklet if you look close enough. But you got to look very close. Now, people like to talk about rights all the time. Well, I got rights. And the Congress likes to talk about taxpayer rights. They're talking about that again. Taxpayer rights, what's that? I don't know. Beats me. They have civil rights. You've heard of that? Civil rights, Martin Luther King did a lot of work in the courts. He would actually go into court over and over again to establish a right. So if a court can give you a right, what can the next decision do? Take it away. There's statutory rights. You've heard of those? Anybody know what that is? The legislature writes a statute giving you a right. What can the legislature do tomorrow? They can repeal it. See, I like to talk about constitutional right. This is what made America unlike any other country in the world. A right guaranteed to the citizens by the Constitution is so guaranteed as to prevent legislative interference therewith. So can a law passed by California or the United States make you waive anything out of the Constitution? No. In fact, there's cases, and I don't have time to go through them all, that say you can't be required to waive one right to gain another, that kind of thing. Now, have anybody heard the income tax is voluntary? That sounds idiotic, doesn't it? Well, we've got a case here, Florida versus United States, a Supreme Court case. And this is one of the things the Justice Department doesn't like what I'm saying, but it's not, I'm not saying it. I mean, this is the thing. All the things they're alleging against me is things that I don't do. Because I don't tell people not to file. I don't tell people it's voluntary. I just show you what I found in the law, in cases and different things. So we have a case here, Florida versus, in fact, this is a Supreme Court case right here. It says our tax system is based upon voluntary assessment and payment, not upon distraint. Distraint means force. Maybe the IRS has not read this case. Voluntary assessment. That's kind of a tricky word, isn't it? And the IRS likes to use another word we'll talk about, self-assessment. For those in California, we have a letter here from the California Franchise Tax Board. He's from Roger Lubens. He said that the Franchise Tax Board relies on its residents to voluntarily file their income tax returns. Now look, Roger Lubens is from the Filing Compliance Unit. You're probably asking yourself right now, well, if it's voluntary, why do we need a Filing Compliance Unit? That's a good question, yes. Special Agent's Handbook. This is would have been carried by Joe Bannister. Special agent, these are the criminal investigating agents for the Internal Revenue Service. They're called special agents. They carry badges, guns. And we happened to get a hold of one. They're kind of a secret manual. We're not, they don't normally give them to us, but we have one here. And there was a letter along with it from the commissioner, which was Mortimer Kaplan at the time. And one of the things in the letter says, agents, our tax system is based upon voluntary assessment. Based on individual self-assessment and voluntary compliance. The material contained in this handbook is confidential in character, and it must not under any circumstance be made available to persons outside this service. Self-assessment. Now what's that? Anybody know? I'll give you a term similar. Self-mutilation. Now do you understand self-assessment? You do it to yourself. When you sign the return, you owe the money. The way is what it says, self-assessment. If you sign a piece of paper to me that you owe me money, do you owe me money? You do. All right. Voluntary. Code of Federal Regulations has it in there. It says 26 CFR section 601.602. Says our tax system is based upon voluntary compliance and the taxpayers complete the forms and payments with any tax owed. And I want to remind you the Justice Department says when the word voluntary is used, that's false and fraudulent. They should go after the IRS for all these terms that I'm finding. We have another one. It's one of my favorites right off the IRS website. This is their website glossary of terms. What does voluntary compliance mean? Well, see, compliance means, that's almost the opposite, doesn't it sound like? Voluntary compliance? Up, down. All right, voluntary compliance, a system of compliance that relies on individual citizens to report their income freely and voluntarily. Calculate their tax liability correctly and file the tax return on time. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 90 million Americans freely go down to the post office on April 15th. Now, do you believe that? They go down there, why do they go to the post office? Fear and intimidation. No question about it. That's why we're not in the Los Angeles Coliseum. People fear our government in our free country. That's right off the IRS's website. I think that's pretty funny. Because now we can go to more standard dictionaries, Funk and Wagnalls. Proceeding from the will is one's own free choice. Voluntary system, a system of freely given support. Voluntary from a law dictionary. This is good too. Unconstrained by interference, unimpelled by another's influence, spontaneous. Gosh, I think I'll just go down to the post office and file a return today. Acting of oneself, proceeding from the free and unrestrained will of the person. Yes. Now, I went to a meeting in 1979. They talked a little bit about voluntary, and I kind of thought the guy doing the meeting, I thought his jelly slipped off his bread myself. But he said, Steve, you should call the IRS up and ask them. I'm not saying to do this. I'm just telling you what I did. I'm just telling you what happened to me. And by God, I did. Next morning, I called the IRS up. I said, is the income tax voluntary? And I talked to an agent there, and the agent said, yes, sir, it is. I didn't expect that answer. So that surprised me right there. And I thought for a moment, I said, well, good. I don't want to volunteer anymore, I said. And then the agent said something interesting. The agent said, but sir, you have to volunteer. Well, that confused me, and I had to hang up at that point. And then we looked up these definitions, which we already went through. And but then we're going to go back to the 1040 instruction booklet. I said they don't really tell you what you're doing, but they have the Congress requires them to do certain things for you, and that's in the Privacy Act. And the Privacy Act, well, Disclosure, Privacy Act, and Paperwork Reduction Act notice used to be on page 2 of the 1040 instruction booklet, right up in front, until we started talking about it, not just us, but the tax groups around the country. And then they keep moving it farther and farther in the back. We have to look for it. This was on page 75. And I got some paragraphs numbered. I numbered those for you. We're going to go through those quickly. In the middle it says what these acts require is that they must tell you their legal right to ask for the information, why we're asking for it, how it will be used. We must also tell you what could happen to you if you don't receive it, whether your response is voluntary, required to obtain a benefit, or mandatory under the law. So I'm interested in what is their right to ask for the information. That was under paragraph 2 that I marked. This is what it says in the Privacy Act. Our legal right to ask for information is in Internal Revenue Code 6001, 6011, 6012A, and their regulations. They say you must file a return of statements for any tax you're liable for, and your response is mandatory under these sections. Sounds like you're required, doesn't it? But does it really say that? It says these 3 sections say that. Maybe we should look at those 3 sections first. So I did. I had an Internal Revenue Code, and we could look them up. Conveniently, I have them on the screen for you. 6001. Every person liable for any tax. Let's stop right there and look at the first 3 words. Every person liable. Now, I'm not really an English professor, but it seems to me, would this make you liable for something if it starts off with that? I'm not saying that this is the end of the road, but this is the section they're sending us to. Let's look at 6011 real quick. General rule, this is it. General rule, when required by regulations. Well, look at the first 2 words, when required. Does this require you if it starts off that way? Somewhere else it comes. Now 6012A is a little more confusing, and again, this is only my opinion, because you had a different opinion on this section yesterday. But it says, returns with respect to income tax under subtitle A shall be made by the following. Every individual having for a taxable year of gross income which equals or exceeds the exemption amount, except that a return shall not be required of an individual. Is that clear? That clearly, see, some people really think it makes a requirement, but I have a couple of problems with that. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to see it. Because this sounds like, to me, it says, well, the ceiling is blue except that it's yellow. Now, names in little y and 2i, they have lots of people not required. But to me, I would like to see something that requires me, not just exempts others. And maybe that's there, but I don't see it. And plus, it's not really clear. Does this clearly make you liable for something that you can tell? See, I don't know. To me, it was caused a lot of confusion. Now, let's go back to the Privacy Act. Our legal right to ask for information. It says they say you must file a return of statements for any tax you're liable for. Did those sections say that? I couldn't see it in there, but you guys have to make your own call. And it says your response is mandatory. Did it require a response? I couldn't really see it very clearly. But you have to make the call. Now, Section 3, if you are filing returns, it's okay. I don't care whether people file returns or not, but if you are filing returns, you want to know your information, and personal financial information that you wouldn't give to your sister is held private by the government. So, it's about in the middle. It says, for example, we may disclose your tax information to the Department of Justice to enforce its tax laws, both civil and criminal, to cities, states, District of Columbia, U.S. Commonwealths, or possessions, and certain foreign governments. Who's left out? You. If you want to get your own tax records, you might have to sue under the Freedom of Information Act to get them, because a lot of times they'll deny it to you. But anybody else can pretty much have them. Now, after I made that phone call and looked up some things, I said, well, I'm really confused. So I said, and it was getting close to tax time, and I said, well, I'm going to have to do something here. So I decided I'm going to go visit the IRS. Now, definitely don't recommend this to you, but here's what I did. I may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I walked into the IRS with no appointment one day. So I said, and there's a little person on a desk there. I said, well, listen, I've been to a meeting that says I'm not required to file or something like that. And I said, I want to talk to your people before I make up my mind. And they were real accommodating then. They gave me a room with 2 agents, one of the little audit rooms, you know. And they were nice agents. I mean, they're nice people. They were happy and everything. And they were, so I let them talk, and they really didn't bring out anything. I thought, well, they would have an IRS code or something. We have a couple used ones on the table. I don't think they're that useful, but some people like them. But you would think if you're an IRS agent, this is your Bible. You know, you take it and you take it and take it home and sleep with it and whatever. But they didn't have any of those there talking to me. They just said what an honor it is to be an American and pay my fair share. That kind of thing is all they talked about. And so I said, okay, when they were done, I got my briefcase out, and I kind of went through this the way I went through it with you. I went through their 1040 instruction booklet with them, and I had an Internal Revenue Code. And these 2 agents at the end of this thing, I don't know how long it was there, they were scratching their heads saying, well, gee, Mr. Hempfling, we can see why you have a question about this. And they said, well, we think your Internal Revenue Code is wrong or something, or old. So they said, we're going to get ours, Internal Revenue Code. I said, okay. So they left me there alone and went off to get their Internal Revenue Code, and it was 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40. 40 minutes, and I was getting worried then. But anyway, they finally come back, and they kind of sheepishly said, well, we can't find our IRS code. I thought this was pretty strange, and the way they said it made me kind of think there's only one in this whole building, and I was in their main building there in San Jose, and it was lost. But that's the way the meeting ended. They were pretty sure my code was wrong. I never totally understood their statement there either, like I would, how could it be wrong? Did I go out and have somebody especially print this up and change some words, or what? Now the last paragraph 4 on the 1040 or the Privacy Act is says, please keep this notice with your records. It may help you if we ask you for additional information. I think that's true because I used it. That's what I talked about with the IRS agents. And if they ask you a question, maybe you can talk about it. I don't know, but that's what they're recommending. Now the name's always, this name is pretty boring. I mean, if you came across, if you were looking through your 1040 instruction booklet and you came across this page that looked like that, most people are going to go to the next page because it looks pretty boring. And I wonder why they named it this. And I said, well, I think I finally figured it out. Disclosure, Privacy Act, and Paperwork Reduction Act Notice. If more people stopped on page 75, read the Disclosure, Privacy Act, and Paperwork Reduction Act Notice, a lot more people would probably stop filing. There'd be a big paperwork reduction. Is anybody required in this code? Well, you know, using cases and other methods that we found some things that look like they're required. And the way the courts have described it, they create a liability on a group of people and then they impose a tax. So we did find some liabilities in here. Section 5703, liability for tax and method of payment. The manufacturer or importer of tobacco products has a liability. And you'll see those little stamps when they manufacture cigarettes, they pay taxes on that, on the manufacturer. Does anybody manufacture or import tobacco in here? Well, this section wouldn't apply to you, but it even points to the section that imposes the tax. Section 5701 says it gives you the rates there. Rates on cigars manufactured in or in the United States. We found another one, 5005, persons liable for tax. This sounds pretty close, but then if you read it, it says the distiller or importer of distilled spirits shall be liable for the taxes imposed by Section 5001A1. Anybody do that? And your beer meister, sir, in your bathtub does not count. See, nobody does that in here. But and it even points to the section that makes us liable. 5001, imposition rate of tax, and then it goes $13 per each proof gallon, and it goes through a bunch of rates. Now, one might think there is a section that clearly applies to you. And I just have to say, I really haven't seen one. Now, the government says I'm smart enough I should know this. But yet they won't tell me the section. Is my time cut? That's all I've been up here. Senator Lou Root, I guess you'll have to go to jail if that is the result of not understanding the income tax law. I shall meet you there. We shall have many friends because it'll be an intellectual center for no one understands the income tax law except persons who do not have sufficient intelligence to understand the questions that arise under it. Now, he passed the Originals Tax Act in 1913 and didn't understand it. It wasn't much bigger than probably 10 pages. I don't know. John Adams, liberty cannot be reserved without a general knowledge among the people. Mark Twain, irreverence is the champion of liberty, its only defender. He's kind of unusual. Joan of Arc, some people complain about this, but Joan of Arc always impressed me because at age 17 she led the largest army in the world at that time. And she was leading an uprising in France and to free France from the English-British terrible rule. But she said something, and this is what I find interesting. And at the age of 17, of course, she was burned at the stake as a martyr, and it made their people even stand up stronger against them. It didn't really work out for England. Anyway, Joan of Arc said, when we move, God will move. So a lot of churches that or a lot of pastors and stuff, kind of don't get involved as much as I would like, because in the Revolution there was a lot of pastors and churches involved with these issues of human rights. Today they're afraid to do it, I think because they're mostly corporations of the United States, somewhat controlled. And some people and even some churches will say, well, we don't have to do anything. See, if the founders had that attitude, if John Adams and everything just sat around in England with their feet up on the desk and wait for God to create America, where would we be? We'd still be flying the Union Jack, in my opinion. We have a 6-hour class that was done Friday. Payman did it. He's going to have those available to you as well. We do have them over there with Sean O'Connor and Dave Wellington. If you went to the class, they're half price, what's listed over there. Now, the government did, and we've been fighting the government on this injunction case for 3 years. They did place an injunction on us from selling a couple of items. We cannot sell the lien levy package, W-4 package, or the 16th Amendment Reliance package, or the Reliance 2000 program. Now, what's interesting about this, I think, is because the government really provided no evidence, and these are the things we'll be appealing on. But we have our entire case over here on CD, and it tells you some things. I think for a lot of people, when you read the type of court documents that are coming out right now against these organizations, it'll probably make the hair stand up on the back of your neck because it is so outrageous. What the government is trying to cover up, the deception used to cover up, the stuff they're trying to tell the court and the judge. Of course, learn what the government does not want you to know. They're talking about all the things they don't want us to sell in here. And the documents the government has even banned are also exhibits put in by the government, Justice Department, all in the case file over here. So I can't talk about those issues anymore, those items anymore, nor can we have them for sale over here at the moment. We will be appealing that decision. But I would like you to make your own decision. I mean, a couple things is for you to find out what you decide on the case, number one, and find out what the government is trying to keep from you, because they're doing this to a lot of organizations. To me, it is simply a First Amendment attack. We're asking a donation of $150 for that CD, and the reason is that we'll also go into the case on our further prosecution of the case, because we'll be in appeals now for a year or so. I don't know who knows how long. But it is, there's a lot can be done here in the Bill Benson case, as well as this one and the others that are fighting these things. And to me, it is simply a First Amendment. They're trying to stop me from doing as many seminars. The organization, I don't believe, is in trouble in that sense, but they're trying to stop certain things from going out. And they're calling them abuse of tax shelter issues, and all we're doing is trying to educate people. Free Enterprise Society, if you're not a member, I hope you consider it today. We have an official membership card that you get. It's good for 1 year. Attend regular meetings at no additional charge. We do regular meetings around California and Nevada occasionally. FES newsletters, we do newsletters right now every 2 months. FES handbook on different topics and subjects that we have. FES ID card is available, and that's $55 a year. Shoot. Well, this is a picture of the ID card. I don't really have time to go through it. You'll have to get, we don't even have the applications with us. We can send them to you. This is our challenge to the national ID. We put this in and we're using it and trying to get into the court with it, maybe grandfathered in above our ID because this was established in 2000 and year 2000. Support services help yourself in dealing with IRS or Franchise Tax Board correspondence. We just try to help you maintain your rights in that issue. Initial consultations, state-of-the-art research tools are available. We can do other research for you if you're having government problems with other government agencies, which includes county or city issues, or maybe some other state issues. Paralegal assistance and or attorney referrals are sometimes available, depending on the problem that you have. If we don't do it, we may know someone that specializes in that. Because our rights are under attack on every avenue. Our property rights, you name it, are under attack. If you remember that Supreme Court case on that, when they took the property to put a hotel or whatever it was, those are shocking. Call if you're not sure about an issue. This is $60 a year in addition to the $55. Super Legal Defense Fund. Now this is something very important. If you're a non-filer in here, I hope you consider this. This assists you if you're charged with failure to file. It's just fun. It pays for the defense is what it does. It deals with failure to file and false to fraudulent W-4. Pays for the attorneys. We're not attorneys, so we do, all it does is help finance the case. And we've been pretty successful in that. Supporting those members that are in the courts. Hopefully none of you in here will ever need it, but by being a member, you're supporting people that are putting everything on the line and putting a little bit in and making it easier for us to defend these cases. Because like Jeff was saying, a lot of other people have said, if we don't have money, we lose the case. And we don't need to do that. By working together through this fund's been around since 1979. It's been very effective. How many members of the Legal Defense Fund are in here? Anybody? Oh, good. So we've had several wins in this. I can't talk about them today. $1,250 initial fee to be in the Legal Defense Fund. And then it's $540 a year or $50 a month. And that's cheap if you know anything about legal costs. We've had one guy in my office spent $70,000 on a lower court trial and lost. That did not even include the appeals, and we would take the appeals. Abraham Lincoln said to sin by silence when they should protest makes cowards of men. Membership information, 55. Today we're going to do 45. If you want to sign up before the event closes today, we don't even need the money. Just, you can do it for $45. Give us the application and the promise to pay $45. We'll take that today. And the support service is $60. Lifetime membership is normally $1,200. We would do that for $1,100 again. We do that on a promise. Legal Defense Fund is normally $1,250, not annual. That's an initial fee, and then it's a $50 a month or $540 a year. Today we're going to do a real good special. You got to get this application to us though, and you'll for $1,050 if you even with no money down and make payments, we can do it for $1,050 to get you into that Legal Defense Fund. If you're a non-filer, you really should be considering it. Even if you're filing returns and like what we're doing, because we've had 25 successes in there, we've won several cases, we've stopped many people from going to jail through the use of this fund. And a lot of members of the fund do even file returns, but they're supporting the people financially. We've won several of these at different levels, probably a third of them at trial, a third of them on appeal, and a third of them, some of them about even before trial because they fail in their procedures. The moral of the story is make an educated decision. I don't want you to take my word for anything. I want you to study these issues and make determinations for yourself and see if I'm right. Also important, this is only the beginning. You need to do your own study and investigation and come to your own conclusions, because I'm only going to give you my opinions and what I've found with some of my experience. It's important that you do the same. This is our catalog that's free over there. I hope you get it. And if you sign up on our mailing list, we'll send you a free newsletter. So I hope you at least do that today or maybe become a member. If you're watching on DVD, you can call our number there and get our free catalog. But I thank you for your time. Freedom is not free. I hope you support one or more organizations or Free Enterprise Society if you like what they're doing. And we'll be at the table to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for that great presentation.